Bum, 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 bum. Well, hello again, dear viewers. For those who don't know me, my name is Winston. I am a humanist, an atheist, a secular Zionist, a Jew, and a very, very serious dog lover. We are following what's happening in Russia right now. It's actually unfolding as we speak, so there's no reason to wait any longer. Let's just get into it. Play, baby, play.
Debris of a Ka-52 helicopter, which is claimed to have been shot down by the Wagner group in the city itself. It's reported the crew were killed. Wagner fighters also reportedly attempted to shoot down another Russian army helicopter. The aircraft, however, is said to have deployed decoy flares to divert the missiles. Also in Voronezh, a large fire is raging at an oil depot. More than 100 firefighters are currently battling the flames and also spraying nearby storage units to keep them cool to prevent the fire spreading. No casualties have been reported as yet. A local journalist gave us more details.
At about 12:30, residents of the left bank of Voronezh heard a strong blast. After that, a siren was heard and fire trucks and an ambulance drove down the street. Now, even from the city center, you can see smoke rising from the entrance to the city. Judging by the video on social networks, the cause of the fire was a helicopter crash. The governor confirmed the fire at the oil facility has been extinguished. More than 100 firefighters attended the scene. According to initial data, there are no victims. Videos of the explosion and fire began to appear before any official confirmation. At the same time, authorities confirmed operational and combat activities in the region after the entry of Wagner private military company formations. A counter-terrorist operation has been implemented in the region. The Russian authorities qualified this as an armed rebellion.
In the Russian capital, forces have been deployed to secure approaches to the city. Barricades have been set up with troops reportedly taking up positions in southern Moscow. Military equipment was spotted at different sites, moving across the city with armored personnel carriers stationed along highways on the approaches to...
Okay, so they're kind of starting to loop the news a bit, but every now and again there's a breaking. They have a little... We have to interrupt for a breaking news, and then they say... The last breaking news I heard was that Lukashenko from Belarus was trying to mediate some kind of a deal between Prigozhin and Putin. I have no idea how well that's going. But look, there's anti-terrorist measures, there's roads under additional checks all around Moscow. And they're calling it a Wagner mutiny. Prigozhin v. Putin. Alright, let's catch up with some some audio.
Services, the military-industrial complex, city services. We ask you to refrain from traveling around the city as much as possible. Traffic may be blocked in certain blocks and on certain roads. City services are operating on high alert.
Moscow
Things are
mayor.
a little bit different. As Russian President Vladimir Putin announced earlier, anti-terrorism measures have been put into place here in Moscow, but also in the greater Moscow region. And we have reports of checkpoints that have been set up and also national security personnel that are on alert. Now, these anti-terrorism measures have also been stood up in another city, Voronezh, which is about part way between here in Moscow and Rostov-on-Don, where Wagner group fighters faced off against Russian military earlier. Now, what exactly does this mean? What are these measures? Well, the last time they were used was in 1991 during an attempted coup by Communist Party hardliners against then President Mikhail Gorbachev. And they're really, really rarely used, but exceptionally in this particular case. And what they mean is that checkpoints are set up that interception of communications, including email and telephone calls, can occur.
Okay, fair enough. But what does this mean for the war? Like, have you heard the word Ukraine today anywhere on RT? Up until yesterday, the Ukrainian Nazis were everywhere, all over RT. Strange how these things happen, huh? Now, I want to carry on with that thought about Ukraine. Like, where is Ukraine in all this? And essentially, how does this change the war outlook? You see, coupled with the fact that there's an ongoing mutiny in Russia, and the Novakhovka Dam collapse, all the water that rushed out of the dam down towards wherever it was going has now all left the area which was the Dnipro River, very, very wide, very wide. Now, all the water's gone, it's all dried up, it's summer. It's now a land bridge from Ukraine into Zaporizhia or whatever oblast it's in. It borders, I have no idea. Probably Kherson, maybe. I have less than yeah, it must be Zaporizhia because that's where the nuclear everything is. Anyway, so now this would open up a really good opportunity for Ukraine to just start their massive counteroffensive against not the Russians, because the Russians probably all going to go, well, against everybody who's in Ukrainian territory. I don't know if the Russian state can actually handle both conflicts unless they very quickly end the Prigozhin conflict, because he's obviously a target for immediate assassination. Immediate assassination. Once, if that happens, then boom, we can go back to fighting Ukraine, or concentrating and focusing on Ukraine. All right, let me just listen some more. Looks like there's some more different stuff coming up.
Voicing personal grievances and resolving disputes behind our lines. It's about stability, about the cohesion of the state, about the security of citizens. There is no justification of such actions. I fully support every word of Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin. The fighters of the Ministry of Defense and the Russian National Guard in the Chechen Republic have already set off to the areas facing tensions. We will do everything to preserve the unity of Russia and protect its statehood.
The Senate, the Chamber of Regents, supports the president fully, the guarantor of the Constitution. And
all right, so the Chechens are supporting Putin, and the Chechens are heading towards Prigozhin. So now you're going to have the Russian military plus the Chechen military probably making a beat. Well, the Chechens will probably just go in there and cause havoc. And then the Russian military should be large enough to go in and then take out. Anyway, play into the hands and take out Prigozhin.
Strengthen its authority in the international arena and form a just multipolar world order.
Western mainstream media didn't take long to pick up the story, with headlines speculating on a coup and quoting unverified information, adding fuel to the media fire. Reuters, for example, posted an article citing a source claiming Wagner had taken control of the city of Voronezh, despite that being denied by regional officials.
Breaking
And just before
news.
we go, a major development in our top story of Saturday here in the Russian capital. The press service of the Belarusian president says the head of the Wagner Group has accepted a proposal from President Lukashenko to halt the movement of his troops through Russian territory and has agreed on steps to further de-escalate the situation. Negotiations are said to have been conducted throughout the day. We'll be keeping across this breaking development and we'll bring you any new updates as and when we get them. We'll be back in just a few minutes with more.
Excellent. But that doesn't... Okay. Lukashenko agree and Wagner agree to halt the movement of forces. But did you notice that she never said Lukashenko and Wagner... Lukashenko and Prigozhin and the Chechens agreed to halt the movement of forces and to de-escalate. However, the Chechens are moving. I mean, they made a very strong statement in support of Putin, and now they're moving. They're taking a beeline straight towards Prigozhin. So, will this become a war between Prigozhin and Kadyrov, the Chechen leader? And will Putin stand back and wait to see who wins? Because whoever wins is going to be depleted, and then Russia can just go in and take him out. But still, that leaves the issue of Ukraine. I got a question. Does the internal strife in the Russian Federation, will the end game be that literally Ukraine takes back all of its territory? All of the Russians actually leave the area and just leave the revolutionaries, which the Ukrainians will remove, all the way through to Crimea. All of the occupied territory of Ukraine since 2014 will be returned back to Ukraine. Russia will be in the middle of some kind of internal crisis, which they don't need Ukraine as a headache to as another headache to deal with. So, I switched to I think I pressed the wrong button there. Let me go back to live. See what's going on. So, here we are. We're kind of at the crossroads. Oh, I was going to say that there is one other guy who has something to say on. Let me see if I can find him and hear the opinion. I think his name's Constantine. Constantine. It's okay, I'll find him. It's in my little history here. Inside Russia, I think that's what he called. Oh, let me see if he's on. He's on.
I don't know what's gonna happen. Things can go different ways at this point, but I definitely know that things will not be the same in Russia.
Mm-hmm.
You know, things will not be the same. So I'm gonna have a short stream today. Right now, I finished streaming about 4 hours. I had a little bit of sleep. It's not time to sleep, my friends. Russia is on fire. And anyway, let me give you the important updates, what we know so far. Rostov-on-Don has fallen under complete control of Prigozhin and his private army, ЧВК Wagner. Complete control. Prigozhin controls the army, he controls the airport, he controls... The governor has asked to all residents of Rostov and province to stay inside. That's it. Prigozhin controls
inside
Rostov.
Russia.
Rostov is the gateway to the south
That's
of
what
Russia.
it's called.
It's a key logistic point. Without Rostov, southern Russia is lost. So basically for Moscow, at this point, southern Russia is lost. That's the major news right now. Second news, Vladimir Putin, nowhere to be found. We have not heard from him yesterday, all the way from yesterday. He has self-ejected from this situation. Russia is managed by no one. It's run by no one. No one makes decisions.
Okay, I don't think that this guy's correct because Putin has made a speech since then. This is obviously not live. I apologize. Let me see if he is live, because he pretty much has to be. No? He must be having a bit of a sleep. Yeah. Sorry about that. Let's go back to RT.
Monitoring the situation. It got tense a couple of times throughout the day when we heard the shots being fired. We heard an explosion. We saw a Wagner fighter accidentally shooting himself in the leg. The tensions were absolutely tough throughout the day. However, at this moment, as the way it looks right now, everything looks to be completely peaceful. Now, the head of the Wagner group, Yevgeny Prigozhin, has already issued an order that all of his troops will now be heading to their field camps, and hopefully very soon we will see the deblocking of the headquarters of the military here in Rostov-on-Don.
Well, let's try and make sense of it all now and bring in our guest, Michael Maloof, former senior security policy analyst in the office of the Secretary of Defense. Many thanks for joining us on the programme. Always a pleasure to see you. So let's just discuss what these extraordinary events that have been happening in Moscow in the past few hours. Why do you think Wagner's chief has agreed to this proposal from the Belarusian president?
Well, I think he realizes that his options really are limited when you think about it. His forces are basically supplied by the Russian military, and I think he wanted to diffuse the situation in order to not include killing any Russians, which is nice of him. And but realistically, his options were very limited from the get-go. He really had no and to do what he's doing right now. He may have he at least got a call for possible negotiation. Let's see if that bears fruit. But frankly, realistically, I think Prigozhin is out of the picture from here on. Given what President Putin had to say this morning about the leadership of the so-called rebellion.
I mean, this is also what I'm thinking personally. I think the trust levels are at an all-time low now.
Yes.
Do you think the Russian authorities will punish the rebelling fighters or pardon them?
I don't think the aim will be to punish fighters. It will be the leadership. primarily, and who else of his inner circle who were involved. You don't take it out on the troops. They're just following orders because there is a history that if you renege, you're going to get shot. So I think they really are in a position of coercion. Plus, it would be folly for Prigozhin to carry this out any further because he doesn't have the support of the Russian people. He does not have the support of the Russian military that we've seen. Now, I'm a little perplexed by how quickly he could take over the military garrison in Rostov. Does that mean sympathy in there? I don't know. That's something that has to be looked at. What I do know is that here in the West, even some presidential candidates are licking their chops to tell the Ukrainians to start taking initiative at this moment, and since President Putin's attention is distracted. But I don't see the disbandment of Wagner Group. I think that if there's new leadership, I think there has to be some certainty that they will receive the supplies that they want and have. Now, I do know that Shoigu, the defense minister, tried to incorporate them within the Russian military. That might be, he may be able to get away with it, or he may not be. I think it would deplete their inability to operate as a fighting force as they have if they're incorporated within the Russian military. I could be wrong, but that's a possibility because their creativity, their flexibility, something that you don't see normally in militaries, is something that the Wagner Group has. We have that with our special forces, although our special forces are under our military commands. Now, that might be a possibility. Who knows? I think technically PMCs are not allowed. Actually, it's a PMC. It's our private military contractors. They're not like our SEALs or our Rangers. They are part of our military, but PMCs are not. So that's a very thin line here. But they do operate. They are supplied by the Russian military. So this is a very interesting development.
Yeah, they're private military contractors, but they're still patriots. They're still fighting for their country.
Yes,
so the whole prospect of a civil war is just so bizarre. The whole turn of events over the past few hours has been so unexpected and so weird in a way. Did you expect such an outcome to the crisis with no blood being spilled among civilians? Did you think it would end so abruptly and so simply?
Yeah, I didn't think he could carry it out, frankly, because he doesn't have that backing. Yeah, if he had the backing of the Russian military, then he would go full speed ahead. But that's not evident. He doesn't have the backing of the Russian people, and all of his supplies come from the Russian military. So I think he was using it as a bargaining chip. He was just trying to make a point, Prigozhin, that is. Whether or not he has succeeded, I don't know, but I think he's basically burned his bridge, his personal bridge, with the leadership, and I think there will be some repercussions, but not against the troops themselves, because they have distinguished themselves as very capable fighters, and they've done things, frankly, that the Russian military could not achieve.
Yeah.
And in very critical areas in Ukraine, and in other areas, they've been in the vanguard into Africa, so they've been an asset, primarily to the Russian government over time.
As we mentioned earlier, some people will be watching the unfolding events with glee. The Wall Street Journal says that the US intends to postpone an introduction of new sanctions against the Wagner Group due to the situation in Russia. Is this the US hoping to capitalize on the recent chaos? How would you explain that?
Well, the United States will do anything that creates opposition to the government itself. Just as I said, they're going to be looking to, I think maybe they were hoping to get more The U.S. was hoping to see more support for the Wagner Group by the general population as well as the Russian military. I don't see that happening, and at the same time, we're seeing an effort by certain people here in the West to encourage Ukraine now to start taking advantage of this. So, but I think it's going to be short-lived, in my opinion, because I just don't see any groundswell for support for this action ultimately to, in effect, have a coup against Russia. The fight between Prigozhin was with Shoigu, and yeah, it was not against the government. And I would add that Prigozhin made that very clear. His beef was with Shoigu, and the fact that he wasn't supplied with military equipment at critical times, such as ammunition, the fact that he alleges that Russian military fired on his own troops, and then Shoigu sought to incorporate Wagner group into the Russian military. For Prigozhin, whose own personality is very bombastic and very unpredictable, he lost it. He just lost it.
Yeah, all right, yeah. So this is really, they're just trying to analyze personalities here. There's, they've written off Prigozhin as having any chance at any kind of a victory. So, and this is all the Russian point of view. Don't forget, we're watching Russia Today, and I believe this is broadcast directly from Moscow. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are right in the thick of things. But, like I said before, we are being distracted. And what I think we're being distracted from is this. The war map. Now, when I mentioned that the large water body that was preventing the Ukrainians from crossing into Kherson or Zaporizhia, whichever, I don't know the difference, where the lines are. It looks like it's, it doesn't matter. But this particular area here, can you see my, yes you can. This particular area here, which you can see it's all in blue, was this dam over here, the Novokakhovka Dam, there, Novokakhovka, right here, that has been breached. So, all the water from this region here has flowed down towards the breached dam and has now left the area. So all of this here is nice and dry. I don't understand why we don't see the Ukrainians just like doing a Pictish type assault. Just run the heck at the Russians, and while they know that there's problems at home, they're confused. The morale is definitely wavering. Go get them is what I say. So this thing has a backwards and forwards. I wanted to show you. There's a couple of things I wanted to show you on this map, or what this map can do. Firstly, remember how Putin and Douglas McGregor and those people would go on about how the Russians are being targeted on their border, and they went in, and now that the Ukrainians have fought back, the Russians are just going to stomp them into the ground, because the Russians are the mighty Russian army. Well, I'd like to show you something. Firstly, there was Kharkiv. Let me show you something. Because I can. Okay, so what this shows here you go. So what this shows is the Kharkiv area on the 24th of April 2022. And the area that is red or gray or whatever this color is, brown, no, red, brown, and red, and whatever, Crimea. So Crimea and the Donbass they already had that. I don't believe there's been any action there. I'm not 100% sure why this is different, but anyway, let's just concentrate on the reddish areas on the north, and then we'll talk about the south. But as you can tell, on the 24th of April 2022, this whole region here, and Kharkiv is, I think Kharkiv is held by the Russians at this point. So the whole area here is all Russian. Now watch how the mighty Russian army performs between the 24th of April 2022 and today, the 24th of June 2023. Okay, so here is how the battle there you go. You can see replacements of armies, etc., etc., etc. Bang, bang, bang. Oh, they're all lining up. You can tell where the armies are and what's happening. But then, watch up here where the little blue is. Oh, Ukrainians starting to... Now watch how quickly the Russians collapse. This is May, June 2022. Still June. Still June of 2022. Still June. All right, July comes of 2022. This is relatively little movement, you know. The Ukrainians have gained control of some territory. See, not much movement. It's now August of 2022, and the Ukrainians are starting to push a little bit up north. It's now September of 2022. Okay, look, September. It's still September, but look how quickly the Russians are losing. This is the great Russian army. And it's still September of 2022. Now we're getting into October of 2022, and the Russian army is fucking crumbling. Still October of 2022. And look how much green has replaced the red. The reddish. Right, now we're in November of 2022. Okay, the big push has somehow stopped. Look how much territory was taken, and they're still pushing a little bit, but it looks like they've Here we are in December of 2022. Okay, we've still got a bit to go. Here we are, 2023, January. Looks like the Russians are bringing up a lot of a lot of resources, let's say, to that border. Now we're in February of 2023. Russians look like they're trying to counterattack the great Russian army. March of 2023, here we are. And the Russians have amassed so much resources on the northern border. It's just ridiculous. And now we are in April of 2023. You see, not much is going on. Not a hell of a lot is going on there. And now we're in May of 2023. Still not a hell of a lot is going on, but it looks like the fighting has stopped along a river or something. But there's a definite border where that went to hell. For the Ukrainians, really, because they didn't advance any more than that. Alright, that's how much has happened since April of 2022. See how much the great Russian army has lost? Right? They lost it. So this is the great Russian army in a place called the north, the Kharkiv. Let's go down to the south. Let's go down to here. Okay, so this is called the Kherson area. And let's take it back to where we were. Oops, 2022. Earliest we can go is right there. Right, so there we go. 2022, April the 24th. And the great Russian army has control of this northern area. And their plan is to advance all the way along here and take Odessa. Okay, remember, they're going to take Odessa. That's their big plan. Let's see how that works out for them. Okay, so here we go. From the 24th of April, 2024, and the great Russian army who controls all of this red up here. Let's see how they do. The mighty Russian army. Let's go. All right. We're still on. Okay, April. All right. Oh, why is it? It's going to. Let me speed it up. There we go. All right, we go. We are in May of 2022. And as you can tell, there's some fighting, but the Russians are holding on. The Ukrainians just can't quite get in there. Still in May of 2022. And things are moving really rather slowly. Now, as we get into June, we're now in June of 2022. Watch the Ukrainian advance. Watch the Russians, the mighty Russian army, conquer Ukraine. We're still in June of 2022. Now we're in July of 2022. Okay, and Russians are still, they're still trying to push the Ukrainians out and advance. but the Ukrainians have the western flank. Look at that. They've really taken a lot of territory on the western flank. We're in September of 2022, as the Ukrainians have pretty much blocked all the efforts of Russia to head towards Odessa, head west towards Odessa. But now we're in October of 2022. Watch how quickly the Russians collapse. We're still in October of 2022, and the Ukrainians are gobbling up territory, either pushing the Russians back or just killing them in place. Yeah, pushing them back. Look at that. November of 2022. Look how quickly the Russians collapsed over the river, and then of course, they held their positions, as we know, up until now. But look at this. Things happen. Nothing seems to happen quickly until they happen, or before they happen, really slowly. And as you can tell, nothing's moving. We're in February of 2023, and nothing's really changed. Now this is the reason, the region where that dam was breached by the Russians. The Russians actually blew up a dam and flooded the lowlands. Stupid bastards. We're still in April of 2023, watching troop movements more than anything else. But you can tell how there's sparse troop movements. There are sparse troops in the region, as opposed to the northern region. So if the all right, we're getting, this is June, and this is today. Right. So what I'm saying here is, because all the Russian assets seem to be all the way up here, and down at the bottom here, strong assets, but here, where this water area region is no longer water, it's now dry land, and there's very little Russian defensive positions here because of that. Now we're going to have to see what the Russians do here. They don't look like they're going to have a lot of chance, especially if there's going to be a Ukrainian counteroffensive this way, and the Russians are up here facing obviously a formidable Ukrainian army there, and they're going to have to start reshuffling their resources, their assets. So some of them going to have to come down here. Some of them are going to have to go up here. And they're going to be opening up weak spots. Very, very weak spots. So that's cool. Cool to know, anyway. All right. Okay, I get the feeling that this is not a very good time to have a stream, or it's not a very good channel to have a stream on, as we don't have too many people watching. Which is too bad, because I wanted to have a conversation about all this. But to end it off, maybe we'll go back to Russia Today and catch up for a bit.
believe the premises have been seized and are being searched at the moment. Of course, St. Petersburg is a city of origin of Yevgeny Prigozhin, this elusive and interesting entrepreneur, qualified as a pharmacist initially and then progressed into various businesses, which culminated in 2015 with his foundation of Wagner PMC, a private military contractor, which has grown into a very significant military force, of course famous for its work in Bakhmut. In St. Petersburg, the city is calm. There's a large student celebration on tonight, which hasn't been cancelled. People are getting on with their business. But there is a sense that the Kremlin and the government in Moscow, particularly now that we've heard President Putin set out his stall very clearly about the position in Moscow regarding Mr. Prigozhin and Wagner. St. Petersburg is quiet, but as we can see, the assets and the premises that belong to Mr. Prigozhin, we can tell you that we have seen FSB specialists enter those areas.
Well, for all the latest updates, keep an eye on our website, rt.com. Thank you for choosing RT International this Saturday evening. We're back at the top of the hour in about 30 minutes.